Space, the junk frontier. In orbit, we have a lot of satellites floating around. A lot of them are working, but there's a lot of it is just junk. Stuff that is the size of this little nut here and smaller. Sometimes it's just flecks of dust and flecks of paint and things like that. Up to, stuff that's the size of small cars out there floating around. I was reading this article from extremetech.com. They're talking about all this junk that's out there, and apparently there's an orbit what happens is when the spaceships or whatever they've got out there is ready to retire, as it were, it's moved into this particular orbit. It's called a graveyard orbit, basically.
The low Earth orbit?
No, that's not no. That's where most of the stuff. Yeah, where most of the junk is low Earth orbit. And there's geostationary orbit. But there's a special orbit that they put it into. So this way, when the satellites become older and active, it's like a graveyard is what it is. It's a junk It's like its own junkyard up in space. Well, Japan is going to send out a tether, as it were, or some kind of net, like they're going to go fishing in space, and they're going to use this to capture all this little piece of junk to bigger stuff. And it's supposed to be electromagnetic, so the stuff will be drawn to it. And then what happens after that, it's supposed to, I think it's supposed to ball up or something and then come back into orbit and then just burn up and be done with. I can see some problems with this. One of the concerns that came up on the page was the fact that they're worried that this tethering issue might capture working satellites. So, and moving a satellite around in orbit is not like, go around and moving your car from one parking spot to the other. It's a lot more complicated than that. Plus, let's just say, and this wasn't on the article, but let's say, let's say this works and they ball it up and they grab all this junk that's supposed to come down and it doesn't fall where they want it to fall, and it falls on somebody's head, for example. And we've had some problems with debris falling down in places we didn't want it to fall. When they send junk back from outer space, back to Earth where they want it to crash, land, or hopefully burn up, it doesn't always burn up, especially when you get a big chunk of stuff all combined. A lot of it's going to burn up, but a lot of it is still going to make it through. Crystal, your thoughts?
This was a really wild story, because I have seen the movie Gravity, and of course, that's the first thing I thought of.
Actually, they do mention that in the article. I have not seen it yet, so.
Yes. Well, there's, I think people that have a kind of a scientific mind are going to have problems with that movie because, it just doesn't quite match up. But,
right.
I like George Clooney, and so it was all good. Anyway, yeah, because, it was talking about NASA tracking about 20,000 pieces of the larger 5-centimeter orbital debris and how much that's damaged. But there's estimated to be 500,000 pieces of those marble-sized debris in orbit as well.
Yep.
And even if a single piece of that, were to get to a functioning spacecraft, then it would be, it would be catastrophic. Let's just put it that way. And that's where they compared it to the Gravity movie. Scientists have been saying for years that this is going to be a problem, and it almost causes a domino sort of effect in space, where it's going to be where we cannot even get into space anymore because of the debris.
Yeah.
So these scientists team up with a fishing company to come up with this aluminum mesh net that literally just sweeps that stuff right out, and like you said, takes it to the graveyard ship. So this is cool. This was really a neat story.
Yes, I hope that they can do this. They said that the next one that goes out, if this works, they say it also might just fail. This net that they're working on might just fail because it's never been tried before, so we don't know if it'll work. But if it does work, the next one's going to be 6.2 miles long. That's a big net,
right? And of course, I know the big concern is the ISS, because that is manned, and they don't want it to be
tore down, right? Oh yeah,
exactly. So,
since it's going to be put out by Japan, and if they're I know this is going to sound really bad, but since they're putting on a gigantic net out in space, you think they're going to try to catch a big space whale? No, I'm just kidding.
Me love you long time. I don't know. We need sleep, people.
I apologize. That was really mean. Dave, your thoughts?
I think this is a great idea. I don't know whether or not this is going to work. The Kessler effect is actually something that is of great concern. As Crystal said, it's essentially a domino effect. Once space debris starts hitting something, that then hits something else, which hits something else, and all of a sudden you've got a bunch of different pieces of debris that are just hitting everything, and eventually it could take everything down.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really a concern that we have, and just like the movie Gravity, which they're talking about. I have not seen the movie either, but I do understand that it's basically about that sort of concept.
Yeah.
It's kind of terrifying to think about that sort of thing happening. I think that this is a electrodynamic tether, which is electrodynamics is a branch of physics which deals with rapidly changing electric and magnetic fields.
Right.
I think it's an interesting concept. Basically, we have to wait and see if it's going to work. If it does work, then we've solved a huge problem. If it doesn't work, then at least someone's trying to do something about it, because we have to preemptively do something. That's all I got to say about that. Yeah.
I've seen a few movies. I don't remember which ones they were off the top of my head, but I remember seeing ones they were trying to get it into space, and they have to go through all the junk that's still out there. So they were kind of addressing this problem, at least in the movies anyway. They say long before, the movie Gravity came along, and they would like, that we got to maneuver right between all the garbage that's floating around in space so we can, get out into outer space, before we can do any, light drive jump shit, whatever they do. So,
this space debris is why aliens crash land in Roswell all the time.
That's exactly it.